A billionaire CEO walks into a diner, sneering at the help. He mutters an insult in German, thinking no one understands. But when the waitress fires back perfectly, his arrogance shatters. What she reveals next, it'll change both their lives forever. Before we begin, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Trust us, you'll want to see how this ends. The Billionaire's Mistake. The neon sign of the midnight plate flickered against the Chicago skyline, its glow reflecting off the wet pavement. Inside, the diner hummed with the quiet energy of late-night regulars, tired nurses on break, cabbies fueling up on coffee, and insomniacs lost in their thoughts. Behind the counter, Lena Bauer moved with practiced efficiency, her dark curls barely contained by a loose ponytail. At 29, she had the kind of sharp eyes that missed nothing and a smile that could disarm even the grumpiest customer. Tonight, though, her smile was strained. Her feet ached. Her lower back protested every time she bent to refill a syrup dispenser, and her mind was miles away, buried in spreadsheets and overdue bills. Her father's medical debts had outlived him, and the diner's tips weren't cutting it. Still, she straightened her apron and approached the booth where a new customer had just slid in. He didn't look like the usual crowd. Dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, his cufflinks catching the light with every movement, Tobias Wolff exuded the kind of wealth that made people nervous. His sharp jawline was set in a permanent scowl, and his icy blue eyes scanned the diner like he was already unimpressed. A younger man, an assistant maybe, hovered beside him, clutching a tablet. Lena grabbed 2 menus and walked over. "Welcome to the midnight plate. Can I start you off with coffee?" Tobias didn't even look up. "Black. No sugar." She nodded, jotting it down. "And for you?" she asked the assistant. Before he could answer, Tobias muttered something under his breath. In German. Amerikaner sind so unjebelt. Sieht AUS. ALS kann nicht mal richtig schreiben. Americans are so uneducated. Looks like she can't even spell properly. The assistant stiffened, his gaze darting to Lena, but Tobias didn't notice. He was too busy scrolling through his phone, already dismissing her. Lena's grip tightened on her notepad. She had spent summers in Frankfurt as a kid, visiting her grandmother. She'd studied linguistics at Northwestern before life derailed her plans. And now, this man, who probably hadn't worked a day in his life without a safety net, thought he could insult her in her own diner? She leaned in slightly, her voice low and smooth as she replied, in flawless German. Eigentlich nicht nur schreiben, sondern auch ihr Bestellung aufnehmen. Oder bevorzugen Sie weiterhin unhöflich zu sein. Actually, I can not only spell, but I can also take your order. Or, do you prefer to keep being rude? The effect was instant. Tobias's head snapped up, his eyes widening. The assistant choked on his own breath. A few nearby customers, catching the tension, paused mid-bite. For a heartbeat, the diner was silent. Then Tobias recovered, his surprise hardening into something colder. He switched back to English, his voice dripping with condescension. "You speak German." Lena didn't blink. Fluently, his jaw tightened. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially not by someone he deemed beneath him. The assistant cleared his throat, desperate to defuse the tension. I'll just have a coffee, too. Thanks." Lena nodded, her expression unreadable. "I'll be right back with those." As she turned away, she could feel Tobias's gaze burning into her back. But what he didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that this wasn't just about a snide comment. Lena recognized him, and she had a very good reason to hate Tobias Wolff. The devil's bargain. The coffee machine hissed like an angry cat as Lena poured Tobias Wolff's black coffee, her hands steady despite the adrenaline humming through her veins. She could still feel his cold stare drilling into her back, but she refused to turn around. Not yet. Not until she had her mask firmly back in place. She took a slow breath. The diner's familiar sounds, the clatter of dishes, the low murmur of conversations, the occasional burst of laughter from the corner booth, usually grounded her. Tonight, they felt distant, muffled, as if she were hearing them through thick glass. He doesn't recognize me. That thought should have been a relief. Instead, it burned. 5 years ago. Her father had sat at their kitchen table, his face ashen as he clutched a termination letter from Wolf Industries. "They're burying it, Lena," he'd said, his voice raw. The mistranslations in those contracts weren't mistakes. They were deliberate. 2 months later, he was dead. A heart attack, the doctor said. Stress, her mother whispered in the dark. And now here he was, Tobias Wolff, the man who destroyed her father and then forgotten him entirely. Lena set the coffees on a tray with deliberate calm and walked back to his table. Tobias was typing something on his phone, his assistant shifting uncomfortably beside him. When she placed a cup in front of him, he didn't look up. "Will there be anything else?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral. Tobias finally lifted his gaze. His eyes were the color of a winter sky, harsh and unforgiving. "Where did you learn German?" The question was a demand, not curiosity. Lena shrugged. "School. Travel." She could have said more. Could have told him about the summers in Frankfurt, about her father's patient corrections as she stumbled through grammar, about the scholarship she'd lost when he died. But she didn't. Tobias's mouth twisted. "You're lying." The assistant winced. Lena didn't. "I'm a waitress, not a defendant," she said lightly. "You want an interrogation? Try a police station." A muscle in Tobias's jaw twitched. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "You think you're clever? I could have you fired before your next shift." Lena held his gaze. "You could try." For a second, something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe, or irritation that she wasn't cowering. Then it was gone, replaced by icy calculation. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, sliding it across the table. "Call me tomorrow, 9 a.m. Lena didn't touch it. "Why?" "Because you're wasted here," he said, as if it were an insult. "And because I pay better than this dump." The assistant looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. Lena stared at the card. Thick ivory stock, embossed lettering. A name, a number, a kingdom. She imagined tossing it into the deep fryer. Instead, she picked it up slowly, her fingers brushing the raised print. "I'll think about it." Tobias smirked, as if he'd already won. "Don't think too long." As she walked away, the card felt like a live wire in her pocket. Later, in the diner's cramped break room, Lena slumped onto a rickety chair and pulled out the card again. The name Tobias Wolff. CEO glared up at her. She could ignore it, could toss it, and pretend tonight never happened. But then she thought of her mother's tired eyes, of the bills piling up on the kitchen counter, of the way her father's voice had cracked when he said, "They're getting away with it." Her phone buzzed. A text from her mom. "Landlord came by. He wants the rent by Friday, or he's filing eviction." Lena's thumb hovered over Tobias's number. A knock at the door made her jump. It was Javier, the night cook, his apron dusted with flour. "You okay, Chica? That suit guy giving you trouble?" She forced a smile. Just another rich jerk. Javier snorted. "Tell me about it." He hesitated. "Hey, if you need backup, just say the word. We don't let assholes mess with our people." "Our people." The words warmed her. Just a little. "I'll keep that in mind," she said. When he left, she stared at the card again. Then she opened her laptop and typed Wolf Industries' Berlin contracts into the search bar. The first result was a news article from 6 months ago. Wolf Industries loses $200 million deal after translation errors. Lena's breath caught. She clicked. Scan. And then, there it was. A single line buried in the report. Sources cite discrepancies in the German language contracts as the primary cause of the deal's collapse. Her fingers flew over the keys, digging deeper. Forum threads. Whispers of fraud. A Reddit post from an anonymous ex-employee. They knew the translations were wrong. They just didn't care. Lena sat back, her heart pounding. He needs a translator. And suddenly, she knew exactly how this would go. The Wolf's Den. The elevator door slid open with a hushed whisper, revealing the penthouse office suite of Wolf Industries. Lena stepped out, her sensible heels sinking into plush carpet the color of storm clouds. The entire floor smelled like money, leather, expensive coffee, and the faintest hint of cigar smoke clinging to the walls. She had worn her only blazer for this meeting, the navy one she kept for job interviews and funerals. It didn't quite fit right at the shoulders, a thrift store find from 2 years ago, but she'd pair it with black slacks and her grandmother's pearl earrings, determined to look like she belonged. A sleek reception desk stood between her and a wall of floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing Chicago's skyline. The woman behind it didn't smile. "Lena Bauer," Lena said. "I have a 9 o'clock with Mr. Wolf." The receptionist's manicured fingers danced across her keyboard. "He's in a meeting. You'll wait." Lena clenched her jaw, but said nothing. She took a seat in one of the absurdly uncomfortable modern chairs, back straight, hands folded in her lap. The clock on the wall ticked loudly. 9:15, 9:30. At 9:45, the double doors at the end of the hall finally swung open. Tobias Wolf emerged, flanked by 3 men in suits. He was laughing at something one of them said, the sound rich and self-satisfied. When he spotted Lena, his smile didn't falter. It sharpened. "Ah, the waitress." Lena stood, refusing to let her knees shake. "You're late." One of the suits sucked in a breath. Tobias's eyes glittered. "I'm a busy man." He jerked his chin toward his office. 5 minutes. The office was exactly what she'd expected, all glass and steel, with a massive oak desk that looked like it cost more than her car. A single-framed photo sat on its surface, a younger Tobias shaking hands with some politician. No family pictures, no personal touches. He didn't offer her a seat. "I need a translator," he said without preamble. "The Berlin deal fell through because my last one was incompetent. You'll fix it." Lena raised an eyebrow. "That's not how job offers work." Tobias leaned against his desk, crossing his arms. "It's how this one works. You'll be paid triple what that diner scraps together. In return, you keep your mouth shut and do as you're told." She should walk out. Instead, she asked, "Why me?" "Because you're desperate," he said simply. "And because no one else would dare speak to me the way you did last night." A smirk. It was almost refreshing. Lena's fingers twitched. She thought of her mother's eviction notice, of the way her father's hands had trembled holding that termination letter. "I want access to the original contracts," she said, "and the mistranslated versions." Tobias stilled. "Why?" "To do my job properly." She held his gaze. "Unless there's something in those files you don't want to see." For a heartbeat, she thought she'd pushed too far. Then Tobias barked a laugh. "Fine, but you sign an NDA first." He tossed a folder onto the desk. "My lawyers drew it up. Standard confidentiality agreement." Lena flipped it open. The legalese swam before her eyes, but one phrase jumped out. "Party agrees to never disclose any information regarding Wolf Industries' business practices." She looked up. "This is bullshit." Tobias grinned. "Then walk away." The clock ticked. Somewhere in the building, a phone rang. Lena picked up the pen. 2 hours later, Lena sat in a sterile conference room, surrounded by files. The contracts were worse than she'd imagined, page after page of deliberately obscure terms, clauses written in such dense legal German that even native speakers would struggle. And then she found it. Tucked between innocuous paragraphs about delivery timelines was a single sentence that made her blood run cold. "All liability for safety violations shall be assumed by the client, regardless of manufacturer negligence." She'd seen this before. Her father had tried to flag this exact clause 5 years ago. They'd fired him for it. Her hands shook as she reached for her phone, snapping photos of the pages. The door creaked open. Making progress? Tobias's assistant, Mark, she'd learned, hovered in the doorway, holding 2 coffees. He set one in front of her. "Thanks," Lena said, subtly locking her phone screen. Mark hesitated. "Look, I know he's intense, but the Berlin deal is important. If you need help..." "I'm fine." She forced a smile. "Just takes time to untangle this mess." He nodded, but his eyes lingered on the files a beat too long. When he left, Lena exhaled slowly. She had what she needed. Now came the hard part. The trap springs shut. The Chicago rain fell in icy sheets as Lena hurried down the sidewalk, her laptop bag clutched tightly against her chest. The file she'd photographed burned in her mind like live coals. She needed to get home, needed to think. A black town car pulled up beside her, its windows sliding down with an electric hum. "Get in." Tobias Wolf's voice cut through the storm. Lena kept walking. The car crept forward, keeping pace. "I said get in, Bauer." Lena stopped, turned. Rain dripped from her lashes as she met his gaze through the open window. "I'm off the clock." Tobias's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Not anymore." He nodded to the door. "Unless you'd rather explain to the board why you were photographing confidential documents." Her stomach dropped. The car door opened. Inside, the leather seats smelled like expensive cologne and danger. Tobias poured himself a drink from a crystal decanter, the ice clinking ominously. "Let's skip the denials," he said. "Mark saw you." Lena's fingers tightened around her bag strap. "I needed references to—" "Don't insult me." He tossed back his whiskey. "You were looking for dirt. The question is, why?" Streetlights flashed across his face as the car turned on a lakeshore drive, painting him in alternating stripes of gold and shadow. Lena calculated her options. They were dwindling by the second. "You fire my father," she said quietly. Tobias stilled. Recognition flickered in his eyes. "Carl Bauer." The name tasted like ash in her mouth. "Your lead translator." Until he found the safety clause you buried in the Munich contracts. A muscle in Tobias's jaw twitched. That was years ago. 5 years, 3 months. Lena's voice shook. "He died 2 months after you blacklisted him." The car slowed, pulling into an underground garage. Tobias studied her like a specimen under glass. "Your father," he said slowly, "was a liability." Lena lunged. The car door handle bit into her palm as she yanked at it, locked. Tobias grabbed her wrist, his grip crushing. "Sit down." She wrenched free. "Go to hell." Tobias exhaled sharply through his nose. Then he reached into his breast pocket and slid a photo across the seat. Lena's breath caught. Her mother, standing outside their apartment building. "Yesterday, you have 2 choices," Tobias said. "One, you walk away right now. But then I can't guarantee what happens to dear Mutter Bauer's immigration status." He tapped the photo. "Those back taxes? The expired visa? Such a shame if someone reported them." Lena's vision blurred with rage. "You son of a—" "Option 2," he continued smoothly. "You finished the Berlin translations. Perfectly. By Friday. And then," he shrugged, "we part ways. Like none of this ever happened." The car stopped. The locks clicked open. Tobias leaned in, his whiskey breath hot against her ear. "Choose wisely." 3:17 a.m. Lena's apartment was dark, except for the glow of her laptop. The safety clause from the Berlin contracts glared on screen, nearly identical to the one that had destroyed her father. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. 72 hours, Bauer. Outside, a car door slammed. Lena froze. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Closer, closer. Then a soft click as something slid under her door. Lena approached slowly. A plain white envelope. Inside, a single key and a note. "Storage locker 1147, 325 W. Harrison. Ask for Danny." Checkmate. The storage facility's fluorescent lights buzzed like angry wasps as Lena approached locker 1147. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking, whether from adrenaline or the bone-deep exhaustion. She couldn't tell. The key felt like a live wire in her pocket. Ask for Danny. The night manager, a grizzled man with a security badge that read D. Esposito, barely looked up from his racing magazine when she entered. "Lockers paid to the year," he grunted. "You Bauer?" Lena's throat tightened. "How did you—" "Guy said you'd come." Danny tossed her a heavy flashlight. "Said to tell you Carl always triple-locked his work." "Mean anything to you?" Her father's old habit. The one he drilled into her during summer visits to his office. 1 lock for security, 2 for paranoia, 3 for the things that matter. The locker door screeched when she pulled it up. Inside, stacks of bankers' boxes, a dented fireproof safe, and her father's briefcase. The familiar scuffed leather hit her, like a punch to the chest. She hadn't seen it since the day he died. The combination was her birthday. Inside, beneath years of tax returns and faded photos, she found the envelope. For Lena, when you're ready. Her vision blurred as she unfolded the letter. 5:23 a.m. The diner's back booth was empty except for Lena, a cooling cup of coffee, and the damning evidence spread across the table. Her father's notes, audio recordings, copies of the original Munich contracts with Tobias's handwritten revisions, make this clause illegible scrawled in his arrogant script. And one more thing, a burner phone. The single contact was labeled H, Weiss, Berliner Zeitung. Lena press call. Noon. Wolf Industries headquarters swarmed with reporters. Lena watched from across the street as Tobias shoved through the crowd, his perfect hair disheveled, his lawyers shouting over the chaos. The Berliner Zeitung headline blazed on every screen. Wolf Industries' billion-dollar cover-up. Lost contracts revealed deadly safety violations. Her phone vibrated. An unknown number. You'll regret this. Lena smiled for the first time in weeks. She typed back. Already due. Should have tipped your waitress. Then she blocked the number and walked away. Epilogue. 1 year later. The bell above the door jingled as Lena set down the now hiring sign in her new cafe's window. Bauer and Daughter. The lettering read, though the name was mostly wishful thinking now. The article had won awards. The lawsuits had bankrupted Wolf Industries. And her mother's citizenship application? Approved last month. Outside, Chicago sparkled under a fresh coat of snow. Lena turned the sign to open. Just as the first customer walked in, a harried-looking woman in a nurse's scrubs. Large coffee, please, she sighed. It's been a day. Lena grinned, coming right up. She hummed as she worked, the German lullaby her father used to sing. Somewhere out there, Tobias Wolf was probably still scheming. But here, the coffee was strong. The pastries were fresh and justice. Tasted exactly like revenge. Want more real-life karma stories? Smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell for your weekly dose of justice served fresh.